Fleeing from the Cylon tyranny, the last Battlestar Galactica leads a ragtag fugitive fleet on a lonely quest, a shining planet known as Earth. Those words still send shivers down the spines of sci-fi fans everywhere. Battlestar Galactica exploded onto screens in September 1978, and what followed was one of the most ambitious science fiction productions ever attempted for television. But behind the chrome-plated Cylons and the roar of colonial vipers, there are secrets most fans have never heard. Today we're diving into the untold stories and bizarre behind-the-scenes moments that shaped this legendary series. From stolen props to tragic toy recalls, from presidential interruptions to a robot dog played by a chimpanzee, we've got 20 facts that will blow your mind, plus one bonus fact that might just be the strangest of all. Grab your Fumarello, settle into your Viper cockpit, and prepare for launch. Welcome back to the Rewatch Club. Number 1, the show was almost called Adam's Ark. Before Battlestar Galactica became a household name, creator Glenn A. Larson had been shopping this concept around Hollywood since the late 1960s under a very different title. He called it Adam's Ark, a science fiction story about humanity's exodus through space. The concept drew heavily from biblical themes and ancient astronaut theories that were popular at the time. For nearly a decade, nobody wanted to touch it. Studios thought the idea was too expensive and too strange for television audiences. Then Star Wars happened in 1977.
On May 25, 1977, after months of hype, a movie called Star Wars hit theaters.
And suddenly everyone wanted a piece of the space opera pie. The title shifted briefly to Star Worlds to capitalize on the Star Wars phenomenon before finally landing on Battlestar Galactica. It took almost 10 years of rejection before Larson's vision finally took flight. Number 2, the Cylons were originally reptiles, not robots. Here's something that changes everything you thought you knew about the show's villains. In Glenn Larson's original concept, the Cylons weren't robots at all.
Attention, attention. His Eminence, the Imperious Leader.
They were designed as a sinister race of serpentine reptilian aliens. This tied directly into Larson's vision of the show as the Bible in space, with the Cylons serving as literal serpent enemies, a clear nod to biblical symbolism. The decision to make them robots came surprisingly late in pre-production. By that point, the Imperious Leader had already been designed and built with his serpentine, almost dragon-like appearance.
It is indeed an auspicious occasion. How often does the Imperious Leader himself journey all the way from Cylon?
That's why he looks so different from the Chrome Centurions. He's a holdover from when the entire Cylon race was supposed to be organic. The show explained this by saying the robotic Cylons were created by the now extinct reptilian race. But that was a retcon born from a last-minute creative pivot. Number 3, George Lucas sued them for $34 million. The rivalry between Battlestar Galactica and Star Wars wasn't just cultural, it was legal. In June 1978, 20th Century Fox filed a lawsuit against Universal Studios.
Lucas and 20th Century Fox filed a lawsuit against ABC and Universal,
claiming Galactica stole 34 distinct ideas from Star Wars. Universal countersued, arguing that Star Wars had stolen ideas from their 1972 film Silent Running and the Buck Rogers serials from the 1930s. The legal battle dragged on for years before being quietly settled out of court. Neither side ever admitted defeat. Number 4, the premiere was interrupted by world history. Picture this. Millions of Americans are glued to their television sets on September 17, 1978, watching the epic 3-hour premiere of Battlestar Galactica.
Battlestar Galactica, 1978. Considered one of the most iconic science fiction works of its time.
The Cylons have just launched their devastating attack. Tension is at its peak. And then, the screen cuts away. A BC interrupted the broadcast for a special news report covering the signing of the Camp David Accords at the White House. Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin and Egyptian President Anwar Sadat were making peace, witnessed by President Jimmy Carter. The interruption lasted nearly an hour before the network returned to the show. Viewers on the West Coast were spared this historical intrusion, but for everyone else, real-world peace literally interrupted their fictional war. Number 5. The budget was absolutely insane for 1978. Television had never seen anything like it. The pilot episode alone cost between $8 and $9 million, making it the most expensive television production in history at that time.
The pilot cost an unheard of $7 million, the most expensive TV production in history.
Each subsequent episode reportedly cost around $1 million, astronomical when typical TV shows were produced for a fraction of that. The show employed John Dykstra, the visual effects supervisor who had just won an Academy Award for Star Wars.
The winners are John Steers, John Dykstra.
They built elaborate sets, hired full orchestras, and created cutting-edge effects. Unfortunately, this extravagance would ultimately contribute to the show's downfall. If you're enjoying these behind-the-scenes revelations, do me a favor and hit that like button. It helps more fellow travelers find their way to the fleet. Number 6. The robot dog was actually a chimpanzee. One of the most beloved characters on the show was Muffet II.
We'll call the first one Muffet 2.
The robotic Daggett who served as a companion to young Boxy. Audiences assumed it was some kind of mechanical puppet, or perhaps a small person in a suit. The truth is far stranger. Muffet was played by a chimpanzee named Evolution, nicknamed Evie by the cast and crew. The costume was an elaborate foam and fur creation with mechanized ears and a moving mouth controlled by remote. But inside that bizarre robotic dog suit was a real, live chimp. Evie belonged to animal trainer Ralph Helfer and reportedly had varying relationships with different cast members. Some found working with her delightful, while others found the arrangement challenging. Either way, whenever you see Muffet awkwardly loping across the screen, you're watching one of the strangest casting decisions in television history. Number 7. Tektronix donated $3 million in equipment. Creating the futuristic bridge of the Galactica required technology that simply didn't exist as standard television props.
It felt like a weekly blockbuster movie with a scale larger than anything audiences had ever seen on television.
So, set decorator Mickey S. Michaels got creative. He reached out to computer hardware giant Tektronix, Incorporated, and convinced them to donate approximately $3 million worth of actual computer equipment to dress the set. In addition to the computing hardware, the company also provided television monitors worth about $35,000 at the time. In exchange, Tektronix received a prominent screen credit. It was one of the earliest examples of major tech product placement in science fiction television. Every time you see those blinking lights and sophisticated displays on the Galactica's bridge, you're looking at real, cutting-edge 1978 technology. Number 8. They hired unemployed basketball players to play Cylons. The imposing Cylon Centurions needed to tower over the human characters. Their chrome armor and intimidating presence required performers who were exceptionally tall. But where do you find a small army of people over 6 feet tall who are available for television work? Glenn Larson's solution was brilliantly practical. He hired out-of-work basketball players. The height requirement meant that professional or semi-professional basketball players were ideal candidates. Inside those iconic chrome suits, sweating through long shooting days, were athletes who had traded the hardwood for the halls of a Cylon base star. The next time you watch a Centurion march across the screen, remember,
it is indeed a great honor to dedicate this southern center of Cylon culture.
There's probably a point guard under there. Number 9. Rick Springfield was a pilot. Before he was a rock star. Before Jesse's Girl dominated the airwaves in 1981. Australian singer Rick Springfield was trying to establish himself as an actor. He landed a small but pivotal role in the Battlestar Galactica pilot as Lieutenant Zack, the younger brother of Apollo. Zack's death at the hands of the Cylons in the opening battle becomes a major emotional touchstone for the series, driving Apollo's motivations throughout the show. Springfield's performance was brief, but memorable. Just a few years later, he would become one of the biggest pop stars of the early 1980s, making his early appearance in Galactica a fascinating piece of trivia for fans of both the show and his music. Number 10. Jane Seymour's character was killed off due to scheduling. British actress Jane Seymour, who would later become famous for Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman, and as a Bond girl in Live and Let Die, played Serena.
Live and let die.
A reporter who becomes Apollo's wife. Her character was warm, sympathetic, and audiences immediately connected with her. Then she was suddenly killed off in Lost Planet of the Gods, leaving viewers devastated. The decision wasn't creative, it was purely practical. Seymour had prior commitments and couldn't continue with the series. Rather than recast the role, the producers decided to kill Serena, giving Apollo a tragic backstory that would influence his character for the rest of the series. Sometimes the demands of Hollywood scheduling write the story more than the writers do. Number 11. Fred Astaire begged for a guest role. Here's a heartwarming piece of television history. The legendary Fred Astaire, one of the greatest entertainers of the 20th century.
Fred Astaire. The name itself is magic. The effortless grace.
Personally approached the producers of Battlestar Galactica with an unusual request. He wanted to appear on the show. Why? So his grandchildren could watch him.
He came because his grandchildren loved the show and he wanted to surprise them.
Astaire was in his late 70s and recognized that the young generation knew little of his classic Hollywood musicals. But Battlestar Galactica, that they watched, He guest starred in the episode The Man with Nine Lives as a charming con artist named Chameleon, who claims to be Starbuck's father. Watching one of Hollywood's Golden Age legends performing in a science fiction space opera, all because he wanted to be cool in his grandkids' eyes, remains one of the most touching behind-the-scenes stories from the original series. Number 12. The music was performed by the Los Angeles Philharmonic. Television shows in 1978 typically used small studio orchestras or pre-recorded library music. Battlestar Galactica did something almost unheard of. They hired the Los Angeles Philharmonic to perform the pilot score. Composer Stu Phillips, who had previously worked on shows like The Monkees, created a sweeping cinematic score that rivaled feature films. The main theme, co-written with Glenn Larson, became instantly iconic, so much so that it was later memorably featured in the comedy film Airplane 2, the sequel. The score was even nominated for a Grammy Award. Phillips would go on to compose for the full series using a smaller studio orchestra, but that initial pilot score remained one of the most ambitious musical undertakings in television history. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss another deep dive into your favorite classic films and shows. The fleet needs you. Number 13. A toy recall turned tragic. This is perhaps the darkest chapter in Battlestar Galactica history. The show's massive popularity led to an extensive line of merchandise, including action figures and toy vehicles made by Mattel. The Colonial Viper and Cylon Raider toys featured a special gimmick. They could fire small plastic missiles. On Christmas Day, 1978, a 4-year-old boy accidentally shot one of these missiles into his mouth. It lodged in his larynx, cutting off oxygen to his brain. He was declared dead 6 days later on New Year's Eve.
It seemed like a fun feature, but it turned into a disaster when a child accidentally swallowed a missile and died.
A second incident involved a similar choking hazard requiring emergency surgery. Mattel immediately recalled all Galactica toys with firing missiles and redesigned them so the projectiles could no longer leave the toy. It was a devastating tragedy that cast a shadow over the show's commercial success. Number 14. The Cylon sound became Kit's voice. If you've ever noticed something familiar about the sound of the Cylon's sweeping red eye, you're not imagining things.
Nearly their full complement of warriors. See that the humans remain entertained until they...
That distinctive electronic scanning sound was later recycled and incorporated into another Glenn Larson production, Knight Rider. Kit, the artificially intelligent car driven by David Hasselhoff, features the same oscillating red eye as the Cylon Centurions. The audio cues are nearly identical. Even the sound of a Viper launching from the Galactica was repurposed as the noise Kit makes when engaging turbo boost. Larson was clearly fond of certain design elements and saw no reason not to reuse them. For fans who grew up with both shows, these audio Easter eggs create a strange shared universe between a heroic talking car and genocidal robots. Number 15. The show's mythology came from Mormon theology. Glenn A. Larson was a devout member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and he wove numerous elements of Mormon theology into Battlestar Galactica. The connections are extensive once you know what to look for. The planet Kobol, humanity's ancestral homeworld, is an obvious anagram of Kolob, which in Mormon scripture is the star nearest to the throne of God. The 12 colonies mirror the 12 tribes of Israel. The Council of the 12 parallels the Mormon Church's quorum of the 12 apostles. Marriage ceremonies on the show are referred to as sealings, the same terminology used in Mormon temples. Even the 13th tribe seeking Earth reflects Mormon beliefs about lost tribes of Israel. Larson essentially created a science fiction adaptation of his faith's cosmology. Number 16. Props were recycled into Buck Rogers. When Battlestar Galactica was canceled in 1979, Glenn Larson didn't let good production design go to waste. He was already developing another science fiction series, Buck Rogers in the 25th Century.
Ranger 3 and its pilot, Captain William Buck Rogers.
Sharp-eyed viewers will notice that numerous props, costumes, and set pieces from Galactica mysteriously appeared in the new show. Weapons, computer panels, and various technological gadgets were repainted and repurposed. It was an economical solution that also created an unintentional visual connection between the two series. Some fans have even jokingly suggested that both shows exist in the same universe, which would make for some very interesting timeline questions. Number 17. Actors read lines off cue cards during filming. The transition from a planned series of TV movies to a weekly series caught the entire production off guard. Glenn Larson's announcement came after only the second episode, and suddenly the writing staff had to produce scripts at a pace they hadn't anticipated. The result was chaos. Scripts were sometimes finished just minutes before filming began. Actors literally had no time to memorize their dialogue, forcing them to read their lines off cue cards during actual shooting. Cast members later admitted this affected their performances, as they couldn't fully embody their characters while also trying to read their next lines. Several episodes from mid-season have a noticeably different energy because of these rushed production circumstances. Number 18. There was a theme park ride that lasted 13 years. The popularity of Battlestar Galactica extended beyond television into the physical world. In 1979, Universal Studios Hollywood opened Battle of Galactica.
Battlestar lived on in comics, novels, model kits, and even theme park attractions.
An elaborate attraction that became part of their famous studio tour. The ride cost $1 million to build and was the most expensive special effects attraction the park had ever created. It was groundbreaking. The first themed attraction outside of Disney parks to feature audio animatronic characters, and the first dark ride to combine sophisticated animatronics and lasers with live actors. Visitors would be captured by Cylons, led through a 200-foot spaceship, and witness a laser battle as a colonial warrior came to their rescue. The attraction outlasted the show itself, running until 1992, 13 years after the series was canceled. Number 19. The original shooting model went missing and was never found. One of the greatest mysteries in television prop history involves the original filming miniature of the Battlestar Galactica itself. After production wrapped, the detailed model was restored and placed on display at Universal Studios. Then, when the display was eventually removed, the model simply vanished. Universal considers it stolen property, but despite decades of searching, it has never been recovered. Various stories have circulated about its fate. Some claim it was accidentally given away by someone who didn't know its value. Others suggest it was deliberately stolen by a collector. The original Galactica model remains missing to this day, making it one of the most valuable lost props in science fiction history. What if I told you the strangest fact is still coming? Stay with me. The bonus revelation at the end is going to change how you see this entire production. Number 20. The show was released in theaters with Sensurround. Before the television premiere, Universal made a surprising decision to release a shortened version of the pilot theatrically in Canada, Japan, and Western Europe in July 1978. This wasn't just any theatrical release, it featured Sensurround.
Will be shown in the startling new multi-dimension of Sensurround.
Sensurround was an audio technology developed by Universal that used powerful, low-frequency bass speakers to create physical vibrations in the theater. It had previously been used in films like Earthquake and Midway. When audiences watched the Cylon attack and Viper launches in theaters, they literally felt the rumble through their seats. The system was so powerful that it reportedly cracked plaster in some movie theaters. Battlestar Galactica became one of only 4 films ever released in the United States featuring Sensurround technology. Number 21. Bonus. A teenage fan committed suicide when the show was canceled. This final fact is both the strangest and the most tragic, and it speaks to the profound impact Battlestar Galactica had on its devoted fans. When ABC canceled the series in April 1979, the reaction from viewers was unprecedented. Protests erupted outside ABC studios, letters poured in by the thousands. But for one 15-year-old boy named Edward Seidel from St. Paul, Minnesota, the cancellation was unbearable. Reports from the time indicate that young Edward was deeply obsessed with the show. When news of the cancellation became official, he jumped 200 feet from a bridge. The tragedy made national news and became a sobering reminder of how deeply television could affect young viewers. It's a heartbreaking coda to the story of a show that meant so much to so many. Battlestar Galactica wasn't just entertainment. For some fans, it was a lifeline to imagination, hope, and wonder during a turbulent time in American history.
It was about making extinction feel personal, not on a big screen, not with time to breathe.
The passionate response to its cancellation, even in its darkest form, demonstrated that Glenn Larson had created something that transcended typical television. And there you have it, 21 facts about the original Battlestar Galactica that prove this show was as dramatic behind the scenes as it was on screen. From legal battles with George Lucas to Mormon theology hidden in plain sight, the story of this series is as epic as the voyage of the colonial fleet itself. Despite lasting only one season, Battlestar Galactica left an indelible mark on science fiction television and eventually spawned a critically acclaimed reimagining in 2004 that introduced the saga to a whole new audience. So, now I want to hear from you. Which fact surprised you the most? Did you watch the original when it first aired? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this journey, smash that like button and subscribe. Until next time, keep watching the stars, and we'll see you at the Rewatch Club. So say we all.